When Eala stepped on the grass courts of the Berlin Open just over a week ago, almost nobody was paying attention. She was a wild card entry, ranked 35 in the world, slotted into a draw that looked absolutely brutal on paper. And then something extraordinary happened. By the time she walked off that same court on Saturday evening, she had dismantled the second-ranked player on the planet, knocked out a former Olympic athlete, and sent millions of Filipino fans into a frenzy at 4 in the morning their time. But before we talk about what makes this story so remarkable, we need to understand what made it so painful. Because between those two moments, the emergence and the collision with reality, there's a truth about professional tennis that the highlight reels don't show you, and that's where the real story lies. Let's rewind to Tuesday, where everything started. The Berlin draw had been released, and if you were setting out to punish a 21-year-old wild card on her debut at this level, you couldn't have written it better. Her first-round opponent was Donna Vach, a Croatian tennis player who had just won Queen's Club the week before. Vach is the kind of opponent that makes young players nervous before they even walk onto the court. She's taller, she's stronger, and her serve is basically a heat-seeking missile that finds spots on the court most players can't reach. Oh, and she's also a Wimbledon semi-finalist from 2024, so she has that kind of pedigree that hangs over you. On paper, this should have been over in an hour and a half. Vach would serve dominantly, dictate the rallies from the baseline, and Alex would go back to the qualifying tour to keep developing. That's not what happened. From the third game onward, Alex did something that would become the defining characteristic of her entire week in Berlin. She refused to let her opponent control the points. Every single time Vach tried to push her back and create space with her forehand, Alex stepped inside the return line and redirected the ball at sharp angles. When Vach broke her serve early and seemed to be cruising, Alex immediately broke right back. And then something remarkable occurred. Alex won 4 consecutive games to steal the first set 7-5. The crowd that had filed and expecting a straightforward victory for the top-seeded player started leaving the stadium talking about this skinny 21-year-old from the Philippines who moved with an elegance and efficiency they hadn't expected from someone her age. That was just Tuesday. By Thursday, everything had escalated to a level that doesn't make rational sense when you're looking at it from the outside. Alex's round of 16 opponent was Elena Rybakina, the world number 2. Rybakina isn't just ranked highly. She's one of those players whose serve is basically an unfair advantage. She regularly hits serves over 115 miles per hour, and on the gun, it touches 120. When she's firing on all cylinders, she's not trying to win points with her serve. She's trying to hurt your arm with her serve. She opened Saturday's match by firing 3 straight aces, and by the time 4 games had been played, she was up 4-1. The logic of a tournament seemed to be reasserting itself. Nice run. Wild card. Time to go home. But Alex didn't go home. Something clicked in the 5th game that changed everything. With Rybakina serving at 4-1, Alex started reading the ball toss just a fraction of a second earlier than she had before. Not dramatically, not some crazy positional shift, but enough to get her racket through the contact zone before the serve kicked off the grass. She broke. She held to love. She broke again. Suddenly the score was 4-4, and Rybakina wasn't hitting through the court anymore. She was pressing, hunting lines that weren't there, making unforced error after unforced error. When Rybakina finally put the first set away, she had made 23 unforced errors, and that scoreline said 7-5. Alex. The entire energy in the stadium transformed. People who had come to watch the number 2 seed get her momentum going were sitting forward in their chairs. The Filipino streaming community watching from 7,000 miles away was wide awake and absolutely losing their minds. The second set was less dramatic not because Alex struggled, but because she was so composed. She broke early, never gave up the advantage, and when it came to serve it out, she faced match point down 15-30. That's when she hit the shot that might define her entire 2026 season. A 4th ace, placed perfectly into the corner with just enough kick to slide past Rybakina's racket frame. 2 points later, it was over. 7-6 Alex. She immediately called her father. She told reporters she was still shaking. And she wasn't exaggerating. Friday's quarterfinal against Elena Svitolina had a completely different texture. Svitolina is 31 years old, she's a mother, and she returned to professional tennis after giving birth, and after the war broke out in her home country of Ukraine. She doesn't inspire the same kind of tactical dread as someone like Rybakina, but what she does inspire is something deeper. She's one of the most stubborn competitors in the entire history of women's tennis. Playing against her feels like moving through water. She makes you earn every single point, and she has this gift for making opponents feel like they're being slowly suffocated. That's where the danger lived against Svitolina, not in being overpowered, but in being gradually worn down. Alex refused to let that happen. She won the first set 6-3 by executing something her coaching team at the Rafa Nadal Academy had been developing in her game for months. She varied the pace of her ground strokes within rallies, mixing flat drives with heavy topspin that forced Svitolina to constantly recalibrate her positioning. When Svitolina tried to get into her preferred rhythm of absorbing and redirecting, Alex changed the tempo. When the Ukrainian moved forward to take time away, Alex threw up lobs or hit sliced backhands that sent her scrambling sideways. It was the most tactically complete set of tennis Alex had ever played as a professional. The second set was messier. Both players kept breaking each other, and there were stretches where neither seemed fully in control. But as the match went on, Alex's athletic advantages became more obvious. She got to every ball first, she recovered faster, and at 6-4, she had won 3 straight-set matches against seeded opponents in Berlin. 3 consecutive victories. Vach, Rybakina, Svitolina. All in straight sets. All on grass. All as a wild card making her debut at this tournament. The numbers were already surreal, but when you put them in context, they become even more striking. Before Berlin, Alex had 5 career victories against top 10 players, and all of them had come in straight sets. 4 of those 5 were against top 5 opponents. She was 21 years old and had literally never lost a completed match against a top 10 player that went to a deciding set. The pattern that was emerging suggested a player who, when she locked into the right mental and physical space, simply didn't waver. And then Linda Noskova walked onto the court for the semi-final, and every single ounce of that momentum crashed into a wall. Noskova is a Czech player, 20 years old, ranked 13th in the world. 3 months earlier, at Indian Wells, she had demolished Alex 6-2, 6-0. That match was so one-sided that it hung over Saturday's semi-final before the first ball was even hit. But it wasn't the memory of that loss that mattered on Saturday. It was Noskova's serve. She hit 5 aces in the opening set alone. She won 15 of the first 20 points on her first serve. Alex's return game, which had been this unstoppable weapon against Rybakina and everyone else, simply couldn't find its timing against Noskova's delivery. The difference was subtle but crucial. Noskova's serve comes off the grass flatter and faster than Rybakina's, and the reason is that Noskova's motion is more compact, which keeps the ball lower through the bounce. By the time Alex adjusted to where the serve was landing, the point was already decided. The second set was better for Alex. She broke in the 6th game and briefly took a 3-game lead, and for about 12 minutes, the arena believed the story was bending again. But Noskova broke right back, held comfortably, and then broke Alex one final time to close out the semi-final 6-2, 6-4 in just over an hour. The run was over. Alex shook hands at the net, sat in her chair with a towel over her head, and didn't move for a long time. Now we're at Bad Homburg, and the very next day, Elise Mertens is waiting. Mertens is Belgian. She's ranked 24th in the world, and she's already beaten Alex twice. She destroyed her 6-2, 6-1 in Madrid 7 weeks ago. She beat her 7-5, 6-0 back in 2023 in Monastir. The head-to-head is 2-0, and neither of those matches was remotely competitive after the first 40 minutes. So here's the question that this match asks, and it's uncomfortable. Can Alex transfer what happened in Berlin into a new tournament? Or was it contained in those 4 days? When you lose the way she lost to Noskova, does the confidence from beating the second-ranked player in the world carry over into the next week? Or does that semi-final loss reset everything? And does it matter that Mertens, despite being more experienced and having a perfect record against Alex, has been struggling on grass? Because Mertens has been struggling badly. 2 weeks ago at Sardinios, she started as the defending champion. She beat Bianca Andreescu in the first round, 6-1, 6-2, looking like the player everyone remembered. Then Elena Gabriela Ruse knocked her out in the second round, 6-3, 6-3, and suddenly Mertens looked like a completely different player. Her footwork was hesitant, her volleys, which are normally among the cleanest in women's tennis, kept floating long. In Berlin, she struggled through 3 sets against Ludmila Samsonova after losing the first set 6-1, which is not the kind of scoreline a confident player puts on the board. Then Barbara Bardinova absolutely destroyed her in the second round, 6-1, 6-4, and just like that, Mertens' narrative on grass in 2026 looks a lot less threatening than her ranking suggests. Her grass court record over her entire career is roughly 55%. She won Sardinios last year. Yes, but that tournament was played in conditions that perfectly suited her specific style of play. Low bouncing balls, tight angles near the net, opponents who didn't punish second serves. Bad Homburg in late June is completely different. The balls travel through the court more aggressively, and Mertens doesn't have the raw firepower to out-hit opponents in those conditions. She compensates with placement, with anticipation, with an almost supernatural sense of where to position herself on the court at any given moment. She's one of the smartest players on tour, but intelligence without pace has a ceiling on grass. And Alex's returning ability is precisely the kind of weapon designed to exploit that ceiling. Now, here's what matters about the Madrid match, and why the surface changes everything. In Madrid, Alex was playing on clay, where the ball sits up higher and gives Mertens time to organize her response and execute her patterns. Mertens thrives when she has time. She reads the court beautifully when she can set her feet. On grass, time compresses. The ball skids through. The margin between being organized and being late shrinks to almost nothing. Those flat drives off the return, the ones Eala couldn't handle and Filipina couldn't absorb, will arrive at Mertens's racket faster and lower than anything she faced in Madrid. The surface changes the entire matchup. But here's what matters about the Noskova loss. That semi-final defeat wasn't just a loss. It was an education in what happens when Alex's returning timing is off by even half a beat. Noskova exposed the fragility underneath all the brilliance. And now Alex has to play the very next day with tired legs on a new court in a new city against a woman who has beaten her twice and who knows exactly how to frustrate young players. The turnaround is absolutely brutal. Berlin ended Saturday evening. Bad Homburg starts Sunday morning. There's no recovery window. There's no time to rebuild confidence through practice sets or to watch film and recalibrate. Alex walks onto this court carrying everything Berlin gave her, and everything Berlin took from her in that final loss. For Mertens, this match means something too. Her 2026 season is sitting at 17 wins and 11 losses, which for a player of her experience and ranking is basically mediocre. She lost early in Berlin. She lost early in other tournaments. Her doubles game is still elite, but her singles game keeps flickering on and off. She's 30 years old, and while retirement isn't anywhere on the horizon, the window for sustained singles success at the highest level is not infinite. Losing to a player she's already beaten twice would be forgettable on the scoreboard, but it would be genuinely damaging to the competitive identity she's spent a decade building. So both players walk into this match carrying weight that goes way beyond the tennis itself. Alex carries the residue of a week that fundamentally changed how people see her. A week where she went from a promising young player from the Philippines to the woman who beat Eala and Svitolina back-to-back on grass. Mertens carries the quiet desperation of a veteran whose grass court game has been leaking confidence for 2 straight weeks. The tactical picture favors Alex, more than it has in either of their previous 2 meetings. She's fitter now. She's returning better than she's ever returned in her career. And the surface eliminates the one advantage Mertens has always had against her: time. In Madrid, Mertens had time to set up her patterns. In Monastir, she had time to construct points and wait for Alex to miss. On grass in late June, that time evaporates. The ball travels faster, rallies are shorter, and when Alex is hitting her returns early, which she did for 4 consecutive matches in Berlin, the returner dictates the terms of the point in a way that Mertens simply doesn't handle well. This doesn't mean Alex is going to walk through this match. Mertens is too intelligent and too experienced for a comfortable victory. She'll find ways to slow the match down, use her slice backhand to change the tempo, put Alex in uncomfortable service games where the double fault monster, that's always lurking in the shadows, threatens to appear. And that's actually the real weak spot in Alex's game. Her serve is the weakest component of her tennis by a considerable margin. Among the current top 50 players, she has the worst first serve percentage on tour. On grass, where free points on serve matter enormously, that liability doesn't disappear just because her return game is elite. It's still a problem. What this match will actually reveal is something more interesting than who wins. It will reveal whether Alex can metabolize a loss and a triumph at the same time. Whether the Berlin experience has been encoded in her nervous system as genuine growth, or just stored in her memory as a pleasant story. The 21-year-old who called her father after beating Eala, and the 21-year-old who sat motionless under a towel after losing to Noskova are the same person separated by 48 hours. Which version shows up on the grass at Bad Homburg defines whether her grass season has a trajectory toward Wimbledon or whether it stalls. And Mertens, whatever her recent struggles, is exactly the kind of opponent who will force that question into the Open within the first 3 games. The Berlin run was absolutely real. The shots were real. The composure was real. The tactical execution against three top-tier opponents